Welcome to the recorded lesson on English Language Paper 1, Question 1. This lesson will include a quick review of the formula for answering this question, along with some of the pitfalls that you have to try and avoid. And then there'll be a question we go through together, and then there are a few practice questions at the end. So this is designed as a one-stop shop for you to have a little practice at Paper 1, Question 1, if this is a question that you have been dropping marks on. Now, the overall message for this question is KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. One of the biggest mistakes that students make is overcomplicating this question and spending too long on it. But more of that in a second. Let's have a look at the question. So this is what the question looks like. Section A, reading. You've got 4 marks available for this question. It says read again the first part of the source from lines 1 to 5. I'll show you that source in a minute. List 4 things about Rosabelle from this part of the source. There are basically 4 main things that people will get wrong when they do this question. Now, the first thing that people will get wrong is summarised in these first 2 bullet points, and that is that they overcomplicate the question and they spend too long on it. In other words, they waste time on this question. It should be relatively straightforward for the vast majority of students to get 4 out of 4 on this question and to do so quickly. To waste too much time on it means you are going to sacrifice marks later on in the paper, most probably in question 4 and question 5. 3 minutes wasted in question 1 might mean 5 marks that you drop in question 5. So really try and get your head around the fact that this is a simple question. It's about retrieval. Can I find some things in a text that answer a question, and can I quickly bring them across from the text? Now, I've put here that you should spend 4 minutes on this question, but that is very much a maximum. And what I generally find is that by the time students get to the exam, they are so honed in terms of answering this question under exam conditions that most of them are kind of reading the extract almost as they're writing their 4 answers, and they do it in around 1 to 2 minutes maximum. So the first thing you're most likely to mess up in this question is spending too long on it and overcomplicating it, so don't. The second thing where people tend to drop marks is if they don't read the question properly. It says here list 4 things about Rosabelle from this part of the source. If a student instead started talking about things to do with London, or things to do with the bus, or things to do with the weather, that would be one reason why they wouldn't get 4 out of 4. And probably for kind of able students who find this paper relatively comfortable, if they're going to make a mistake on this question, it will be because they don't look at what the question focus is. So first thing you do is you make sure you underline what that focus is. The next most common reason why people drop marks on this question is that they bring in information from outside of the lines given. So if we look at the start of the question again, read again the first part of the source from lines 1 to 5. If you bring in information that is outside of lines 1 to 5, you will not be credited for it. And again, in the stress of an exam, that is something that can sometimes happen. There is a very simple way around that though, which we'll look at in the next slide. The last thing, the 4th thing that people tend to kind of mess up if they do, is that they don't write in full sentences. They might just write a single word like cold or something like that. You have to write Rosabelle is. You have to write it as a full sentence. But remember, you want to save as much time as possible. So if you're writing more than 10 words, I mean, to be honest, I can't even imagine that you'd write 10 words. You know, something like Rosabelle is hungry is the type of sentence you are going to be writing. 3, 4, 5, 6 words, you know, that kind of order. Right, let's have a look at the extract. So there's the extract, and I've been a really good student here, because what I've done is the first thing I've done when I've looked at question 1 is I've gone right, lines 1 to 5, and I've drawn a big box, lines around lines 1 to 5, making sure I don't make that silly mistake of bringing in information from outside of the lines that I've been given. We need to list 4 things about Rosabelle from this part of the source. What I'd like you to do now, please folks, is pause the video. The best way to do that is probably not to watch the video on the projected view, but to just watch it in the normal screen view, and then you have some controls down in the bottom right hand corner near a speaker, and you can pause, rewind the video, put it forward and all that kind of stuff. So pause the video at this point, list 4 things about Rosabelle from this part of the source. What I'd like you to do is just find 1. So just have a go at finding 1. So this is a simple retrieval question. One of the things you might have found, the first thing that I found, because I was kind of doing this as I was reading the source almost, at the corner of Oxford Circus. Well, there's nothing there that I can talk about because there's nothing about Rosabelle. At the corner of Oxford Circus, Rosabelle bought a bunch of violets. So the first thing I'm going to write, Rosabelle had bought some flowers, or she had bought some flowers. That's going to get me 1 mark. Rosabelle bought a bunch of violets. I've written down Rosabelle, or she had bought some flowers. Rosabelle had bought some flowers. Rosabelle had bought some violets. Anything like that would have got you marks. Now, I said at the corner of Oxford Circus that there wasn't anything there, but actually I could have said Rosabelle had been at the corner of Oxford Circus. That would have got me a mark. So there was something there. Now what I'd like to do, please, is find and write 3 more. Okay, hopefully you paused the recording there. Hopefully you found 3 more. Just so you have an idea, this is what the exam board says. She had a scone, a boiled egg and a cup of cocoa for tea. She worked in a hat shop. She'd worked hard all day. She swung onto the step of the bus. She grabbed her skirt with 1 hand. She clung to the railing of the bus with her other hand. She wanted a dinner that was hot and strong and filling. Now, as you can hopefully see, this is a simple retrieval question. Do not overcomplicate it. They are not expecting an awful lot for you to be able to get full marks on this question. Go for accuracy, go for speed, make sure you're answering the question and make sure you're answering from the right part of the extract, and you cannot go wrong. Okay, a little revision activity follows on the next slide. When we go to the next slide, if you pause the video and try and write out this activity, please. Here we go. Okay, let's see how you got on. So what you should have written is language paper 1 question 1 should take a maximum of 4 minutes. Don't overcomplicate it. Read the extract and draw a box around the relevant section. Read the question carefully and underline the question focus. In the space provided, write 4 short answers in full sentences. That, folks, is your guide to paper 1 question 1. There it is. Okay, let's go on then and talk about how you revise for this question. Well, the first thing to say is there's not really a lot of revision that you can do as such. There is a little bit, which I'll talk about in a second. Mainly it's about practice, and you get lots of chance to practice at the end of this recorded lesson. I think I've got 3 examples for you. But this is the sort of thing where your teacher will be giving you a whole bunch of past papers, and it's a great way of warming up for a revision session. If you're spending an hour doing English language, then maybe just start off 5 minutes. I'm going to do 2 question 1s just to get yourself into the swing of it before you perhaps go on and tackle one of the more intricate questions later on in the paper. But there is a bit of revision you can do. First of all, you have to know your formula. The best way to do that is just have it on a flashcard, and then it will very quickly become part of your long-term memory. So do this now, pause at the end of this slide, create a flashcard for paper 1 question 1. On one side of the card you should write how to answer language paper 1 question 1. That's the question you're going to be asked, and this is what you should write on the other side. 4 minutes, keep it simple, draw a box around section and extract, underline the question focus, and finally 4 short full sentences. That is on the back of my on my flashcard, sorry, and those are the things I need to remember to do. Right, we're now going to look at a few questions. I think there are 3 here from memory. Pause each one and have a little go. Have a little timer next to you and make sure you spend no longer than 4 minutes, and hopefully what you find is that by the time you get to the 3rd one you can actually smash these out in a much shorter time than 4 minutes. Here we go. Okay, here is the first extract for you to have a go at. 4 minutes. Go for it. I will pause for a few seconds and then I will give you the answers that I would have come up with in about 5 seconds or so. Okay, so going through this extract, first of all, read lines 1 to 9 of the source. So the first thing I would have done is made sure that I had a box around this first paragraph, lines 1 to 9, to make sure that I didn't stray. Second thing I would have done is read the question really carefully. It lists 4 things from this part of the text about the city of Bistritz. I don't want to be talking about anything else about the city of Bistritz. I'm going to keep it simple. Bistritz is a very interesting old place. That would have been answer number 1 for me. Bistritz is on the border or on the frontier. It wouldn't have mattered which I would have put. That would have got me a mark. Bistritz is linked to Bukovina by a pass. I would have just written that. Biarritz has had a very stormy existence. I would have written that. Biarritz experienced a series of fires 50 years ago. I would have written that. So I'm now on 5, I think, aren't we? Biarritz underwent a siege in the 17th century. There's another answer. Biarritz has experienced famine and disease, and that gets me to the end of line 9. I think I probably came up with 6 or 7 answers there. Notice how quickly I was doing it. You might not be at that stage when you first start doing these questions, but that's where you're trying to get to. Right, let's go on to the next example. Okay, so here's an extract from the life of Pi. Pause the recording and then have a go at answering this question. Okay, so this one's actually a bit more difficult, and you would, to be honest, you probably wouldn't get a question like this because there's lots of information in here that is not really about the ship. And so the extract they would have picked would have been better suited, but still it's good practice because you might have to work a little bit harder here. So read again the first part of the source from lines 1 to 12. Well, we've only got lines 1 to 12, but we would of course draw a box around it. List 4 things from this part of the source. From this part of the text about the ship. Okay, so I would have probably written inside the ship there were noises inside the ship. There's not a lot in the next section because it is all about really what the person is doing. You could have said the ship has a stairwell. That's in line 2, and that would have got you a mark. You could have said something like the ship was taking on water because there's a bit of inference there. Keep coming through. Down there was where my family was. I ran upstairs. I got to the main deck. So the ship has a main deck. You could say that the ship was listing badly. Listing means kind of rocking from side to side, so that would have got you a mark. The ship is, you could say the ship is inclined from bow to stern. That would have got you a mark. You see, I was trying to overcomplicate it in my head then. I was going to say the ship is about to sink. I was trying to infer, but actually that's not something that you should try and do in this question. Just keep it simple. The ship was sinking. There you go. It says that in the next line anyway. I think we've probably got kind of 5 or 6 there. A bit more of a difficult one. Felt like you needed to work a little bit harder. Felt like there was lots more information that wasn't really relevant to the question, but hopefully you've seen that even in that more difficult question, if you just keep to that rule of keeping it simple, focusing on the question, then you should be fine in getting those 4 marks. Right, we've got one more example for you to have a go at. Have a look at this question, pause the recording, and then I'll come back in a second to have a go at giving you some answers. Okay, so first thing I do is make sure I'm looking at the right part of the source. Well, handily we've only been given lines 1 to 5, but of course we would draw a box around it to make sure we're not making that common mistake. List 4 things about Zoe's surroundings from this part of the source. So this is a very open question about Zoe's surroundings, so anything to do with the setting here would get you a mark. Much simpler question. It was snowing. That would be my first answer. I would say the mountain, the air was cold. There was a smell of pine resin in the air, so there's 2 there from line 2. The resort of Saint Bernard en Haute was below her. The mountain peaks were irregular. Or something like a mountain range lay to the west. So I think we've got 5 or 6 there, which would have got us marks. And I think that's probably taken about 1 minute to speak those. Hopefully, if you're writing quickly, you can get them done in a similar amount of time. Right, folks, that's it. That is paper 1, question 1. Very straightforward question. I hope you will agree. The key now is just to practice that as regularly as you can. If you go through pretty much every past paper that your teacher gives you, you should be well prepared come the time of the exam.